are you?
Good. I'm in my onesie. Did you notice?
Is that a purple label one?
Yes.
I've been coveting that onesie actually.
They were nice enough to give this to me when I was doing a simple favor.
I can't imagine any man to wear it better than you, sir.
Bless you. It's quite a look. Wait, I need a knife.
Now, I'm going to put this on IG Live at the same time. Is that okay?
Yeah, of course. I'd be honored. Wait, I just need to. Oh god, I gotta cut off my. I have a knife here. Cut off my keep a formula. So you have your Negroni.
Well, Paul, it's 9:15 in the morning.
Negroni.
So I have a mystery cup.
Oh, I like it. We'll say it's a julep.
Exactly.
Wait a minute. Hold on. Here we go. Just opening this up.
So, ladies and gentlemen, readers of TheRake and Revolution, thank you for joining me and one of my favorite human beings, actually, and I think one of probably your favorite human beings, Mr. Paul Feig, film director, but human being extraordinaire.
Oh, wait. I feel the same way about you. You are one of my favorite people on the planet, and I have to say, what you've been writing, these editorials you've been writing, are so beautiful. And so spot on and so needed. The one you just did today about fear and compassion is just, it's really, you're very inspiring.
Well, thank you, Paul. It's every time that we've had this sort of like a battle between these polarizing forces, each time compassion or love has always won out. And so I think that, I hope that it will. I have faith that it will, but I think certainly people like you, who bring this wonderful moment of uplifting energy and joy to the world. So let's start with that, maybe, if you don't mind. So I have so many friends, so many people who comment on how they look forward to your cocktail tutorials for obviously the educational component of it, obviously the alcohol component of it as well, but also because it just puts a smile on their face. It brings them this moment of joy. It gives us also this something to look forward to. So tell me about the genesis of this. Look at that Negroni, fantastic.
Negroni, just for you, Ray. Just for you, the man who taught me everything I need to know about Negronis and Negroni Espaliatas, but this is a Negroni Giniata. So, thanks, Wei. No, you know what? I just have so much fun doing it. It's weird. I was shooting a TV pilot in North Carolina up until 3 weeks ago, and everything kind of was coming down, and we were there like, can we ride this out? And then I just looked around at the crew. I said, like, there's no way. Everybody, we're pulling the plug on this. We got to stop. I don't want anybody in danger on any crew that I'm working on. So piled into a plane and went through New York and got back here, and so immediately, obviously, had to quarantine. But I remember, like, that day I got in, I was like, okay, so am I just going to sit around for months and just try to work and not kind of do what I can do. I can make movies, or I can try to, I used to be a stand-up comedian, not a very good one, but I enjoy making people laugh. And so I was like, well, I don't have any skill. I'm not a medical professional, but maybe I can try to make people laugh. And we can make cocktails at the same time and try to have fun, but at the same time, try to raise money every day. And so every day we highlight a different charity, and I've been donating to a lot of charities, just, and I vet the charities to make sure that they're on the level so nobody's getting ripped off. And then, but I said to myself, I want to do it every single day because I love things when a time of hardship or crisis or whatever that you can just rely on every day to be there, whether you watch it or not, you just know it's there. And so that's what I thought we'd do. And we've been going 25 days strong without a break.
Bravo. Cheers.
Grazie. Hey, to you.
To you, sir.
Is that a giant mint julep you're drinking?
Yes. At 9:30 in the morning.
I expect no less out of you, sir.
To be fair, a lot of people would have no trouble believing that, including my mother. So Paul, one of the things that I found is this: people have gone kind of through this mental journey. I think the initial reaction to a lot of us, and I think still quite a few people, especially in the United States, where, and my heart really goes out to the United States, particularly New York, which is a home for me, a place of my birth, and I know for you as well. But I think the initial reaction to this was kind of shock, and I think that people kind of like in the midst of this shock, they kind of didn't know what to do, and they just let the day kind of move away from them, and it became completely unstructured. And people were joking about breakfast Negronis and so on like that. And which, if that's your choice, I have no problem with that. But but you can let it get away from you. And as a result, what happens is that you tend to kind of just be mired in your own thoughts. You're inundated by all this sort of like overwhelming news consistently every time you turn on the television. And it's very easy to fall into a depression or into anxiety. So tell me a little bit about how you structure your day or how you combat against that, you know?
Well, I mean, you know, for me, and I proselytize about this on my show, is you got to stick to a routine. You got to find a routine. Like, you know, I would say, like, don't spend the day in the clothes you slept in. I'm telling you, it seems trite, but like, get up, take a shower, put on your tuxedo, you know, but literally just, you know, don't fall into this like endless day night pattern, because that is so depressing. You know, one of the other things I said is like, don't, you know, we all love watching Netflix. Don't binge entire things straight through. They're like, I've read psychological reports that say it actually causes depression, because it's like you know, oh, this giant greasy hamburger, I want it so much, I'm just going to devour it in 5 minutes, and then you always feel terrible after you do. So just like, for me, I just kind of like, have the day structured, get dressed, do the stuff you need to do, try to finish up work that you've had around. You know, I'm lucky I've got, you know, as a writer and a producer and director, there's a lot of projects that I've got to get in order and all that. You know, but, you know, that's what I'm trying to say to people on you know, the show, like, find things you need to do, or, you know, create things that you have to do, create tasks for yourself, create a routine. And also, you know, the thing you got to be careful of, like, you know, it can tip the other way, where you go like, I have to be so productive that you'll drive yourself crazy, because it's very hard to concentrate right now. You know what I mean? Sure. And so, but if you just go like, these are the things I want to get done. If I don't get them done, I'm not going to beat myself up, but at least I had things that I was trying to get done.
Right. I totally agree. I think you know, human beings long for purpose, right? I think they long for physical purpose, and they long for mental purpose as well. Yeah. So I've had to, you know, the way I'm getting through this is I've had to structure my day. So I get up in the morning, and it doesn't matter how many Negronis I've had the night before. It doesn't matter what time I've gone to bed. It's got to be 7, okay, maximum 7:30, and then I go out and exercise, because we're allowed out once a day, right? And I kind of like have to make the effort to just, you know, sweat it out. Then your body feels as if it has, you know, it has done something for you. It has, you know, I think like in the back of my mind, maybe it was because I went to an Episcopalian boarding school, but I have this very kind of Calvinist work ethic where, like, if I don't do shit, like, I just get depressed, right? And then you know, and then I compel myself to have to do something with my mind as well. And, you know, I'm lucky enough, like yourself, to be a writer, you know, probably not as accomplished as you, but then I, you know, and then I kind of think about what I want to write. And a lot of times that might be something for TheRake or for my watch magazine, but a lot of times, especially in recent days, it's about what's going on. And I want people to understand that we are all feeling this, right? We are all united in this. And then I think the last thing is that, and, you know, I always go back to Ralph Lauren, because he's always been this incredible mentor to me. But the biggest and greatest piece of advice, and the most resonant piece of advice that he's ever given me, is that when people feel bad, a lot of times it's because they spend too much time thinking about themselves and not enough time thinking about other people. Yeah. And so if you try to kind of commit yourself to, you know, a random act of kindness or an intentional act of kindness every day for someone else, as you clearly do for all the money that you raise for charity, at the end of the day, you feel happy. And then when you have that Negroni, or when I'm watching your cocktail session and I'm making that drink along with you, I feel like I deserve it. You know, I feel that I've worked for it, you know, and then it's a wonderful experience, you know. Would you agree?
Oh, 100%. No, you have to earn the things. You know, there's a lot of like comfort things we're doing and cheat things we're doing, like we're eating stuff we probably shouldn't eat. We're having drinks, you know, when we shouldn't. But you have to, if you earn them, then it's great, you know. And again, that's why I'm trying to, with the show, go like, you know, focus on this charity. Think about the people out of work. Do some research. Find out who in your area needs something. Find out what local businesses need support, and that can fill up your whole day. What I'm amazed at is, you know, with nothing really going on, my days are going faster than they normally do, because there's so much stuff to kind of think about.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's talk about.
You have to get out of your own head, like you said.
But first, I want to talk about you with clothes, because I know you and I share this passion. But first, let's just name, from your perspective, just a couple of charities that people can go and check out, and that, you know, because I know that there's this wonderful one by Chef Jose Andre. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's doing a bunch. I don't have my notebook on me, but there's a great one called feedingamerica.org. which is amazing. There's oh gosh, I pushed so many that
What I'll
like
put
Feed the Children is a great one. No Kid Hungry is a great one. There's a bunch of medical ones. Directrelief.org is great. They're getting a lot of medical supplies to people.
Yeah.
And then there's just a lot of local charities. I mean, I'm very much, you and I are the same way. We eat out a lot and we go to bars a lot. And so, I just donated a bunch to the Polo Bar. They have a relief fund for all their workers. And it's just like, I would say, find your favorite watering hole, your favorite restaurant, donate or buy gift cards. Because if you buy gift cards, it's just literally like getting a bond. You're giving them money right now, and then you can redeem it later on for food.
Right.
But, really just reach out, because I'm most concerned about, obviously the medical thing obviously is the most important thing. But I'm so concerned about people being out of work and not having money and not being able to, to not have money to get food and to pay your rent. That's terrifying.
Yes.
And so I want to make sure that all the people that make our lives so much fun when we're out having a good time are being taken care of. All the bartenders and the barbacks and the servers and the food preparers and all that. So, you could spend your whole day trying to figure out who needs help and figuring out how to help them. Even if you don't have the money to donate, you can try to help out through, I don't know, volunteering or connecting people up or finding out who needs something. There's a lot of things to do right now. To be bored right now is to be not doing everything you could be doing to help.
Absolutely. And guys, if there's just a simple one you guys want to do, and you're in a country that still allows you to exercise outdoors, you can go run 5K and then check out an Instagram feed called or page called Run for Heroes. And then you can donate 5 or 10 pounds or get people to donate for you as well for the NHS in England.
Right.
That's a simple one. And it's also good because it compels you to go outside and run. And then the great thing is you can do an Instagram post and then nominate people. And then if they don't go run, they feel incredibly guilty. So you can do kind of a reward and punish thing. You can find people that you really like and can run. And then you can find people that you have kind of a passive-aggressive relationship with and nominate them too and shame them into running.
You go and chase them. Just chase them around.
Exactly. So, Paul, I completely agree with you. So that if I dedicate the morning to writing and kind of a bit of problem solving and so on, and then the afternoons I do the calls with my guys, my teams around, from London or here in Singapore as well, or around the world for Revolution. And I noticed that when we made it, and it was Tom Chamberlain's idea to make jackets required for the Rake meeting, right?
Yeah,
it completely changed our mental attitude. It made everyone much more sort of on point. It made everyone sort of sharper, more creative, more reactive, and gave them a sense of kind of a feeling of dignity. You know what I mean?
I'm so on board with that.
And I love this sort of like this image in my mind when Tom was telling me this, because he always reminds me of some, a British person from 200 years ago, of British officers in the field, as the cannons or balls are flying around, they're shaving themselves immaculately.
I have no problem with that. I think it's how life should be.
But tell me about the role of clothes for you in general. I mean, I want to know about that, but also specific to this period, because I noticed that you dress in a way for your tutorials, and I know that you've always dressed, and I think that makes you feel better because it's as Proust says, style is the revelation of that universe that each of us sees but is unseen by others. It's an expression of who you are, right?
Yeah, 100%. And it's, I think, and I never wanted it to sound like I'm kind of giving people a hard time or passing judgment on people, but I do think it's like you've got to present yourself, especially if you're, look, I'm in showbiz, even though I'm behind the camera as a director, I'm still in show business. And look, everybody's doing their best to try to get stuff out there. But when I see, I don't know, celebrities like looking like they haven't taken a shower in 10 days, I'm kind of like, come on, man, you're in showbiz. Like, there's nothing wrong with putting on a show, or just kind of like, I don't know what we're trying to say. Like, look, we're one of you. We're just kind of, it's like, I don't know if people in real life are being as slobby as some of the celebrities I'm seeing. So I just feel like we're so lucky that we get to have people that like what we do and that we're able to reach them, that I never want to be disrespectful of that. And the other side of it is I never want them to think like, oh, look at him. He's so, you know, oh, he's so well-to-do. He's getting all dressed up. It's like, that's not the reason I do it. It's really because I want to be respectful of you guys of going like, look, I'm here to entertain you. I want to try to make your day better. And if I can present something that, you know, feels more, I don't know, like I took time and I cared, versus I like, all right, whatever, I'll roll over the phone, like, hey, what's going on, guys? And look, there's people that do that, and it's great. I just, you know, for me, I love clothes. I do the same thing that Tom says. Whenever I do, you know, every day I've got conference calls for different projects we have going on. I always make sure, take a shower, put on a suit and tie, and be like I'm going to go to like I would be dressed for a meeting. The fact that it's a virtual meeting is no different than me going to somebody's office and walking in. If I walk in sweatpants, that would be crazy. But the fact that it's on video, you go like, well, he's in sweatpants, that's fine. It's like, no, it's not fine. You're in a meeting. Dress up, for Christ's sake.
Absolutely. One of my favorite lines came from Blake Lively so let me mention that A Simple Favor, which is one of your films, is a film that I absolutely love. I love it also because it is a film that you think starts off in a specific genre and then kind of transcends that genre and kind of like touches on 3 or 4 different genres, you know? And then in the end, it's its own genre, which is, I think, is very typical.
It's just insane at the end.
You know, and I think that in this regard, you're, to me, one of my favorite filmmakers because you create films that have a unique voice, right? You know, kind of the way that my old boss, Catherine Bigelow, creates films that like no one else could make them. That's a Catherine film. But I remember when you were mentioning when Blake Lively was developing her character and she was trying to think about how she would like to dress. She turned around and said, Paul, I want to dress like you, right? And I took that to mean, because I think maybe not everyone realizes this, but that, you know, you actually direct in suits. You do pretty much everything through your life dressed in a specific way. Tell me about when your love affair with clothing began.
It started really early. You know, my mom loved old movies from the 30s and 40s. We used to watch them all the time, Cary Grant and, you know, Fred Astaire and William Powell, all these movies. And I just, as a kid, from 5 years old, I would see these things and go like, that's how men dress. That's how like guys I think are cool or funny or just everything are adults dress. And then when I was about 7 or 8, Groucho Marx was one of my heroes. Right. And I read a biography about him. And there's a quote in there that said like Groucho, he had said that he didn't trust a man who didn't dress nicely. Amazing. And so that was all I needed. So it was like from then on, I remember saying to my mom, like, I have to get a suit, I have to dress up. And she took me to the fancy mall when I was like 8 or 9 years old. And I got my first Pierre Cardin 3-piece suit. Right. And I wore that forever. And I never stopped. It was only in my kind of mid 20s to early 30s that I pivoted towards, because I was a stand-up comedian. And I used to wear a suit. I used to wear Willie Wear suits. Do you remember Willie Wear suits? Yeah, with the sleeves rolled up, and I used to wear a bolo tie. It was very David Byrne kind of, and so. But as a stand-up, then I was kind of enough people were kind of like, oh, you know, we don't know who you are. So it was kind of like thing of like you had to kind of dress down to be like one of the people. And so I did, but even then I had my own style, which was I bought all these old vintage bowling shirts, and so I had vintage bowling shirts and these kind of fun pants that weren't jeans. They were sort of like, you know, pleated pants and Converse All-Stars. But I made a choice to have a style. And so I always say, like, the worst thing that can happen to a person, especially to a guy, is to just have no style. Yes. Your style can be completely insane. Like, if your style is like Hawaiian shirts and Bermuda shorts, awesome. If that, you go like, this is who I am, do it, because that's awesome. You know, what I have a problem with is, you know, guys who just dress so they don't get arrested. You know, like, I have to put on clothes, so I'll just pull this crap on. It's like, well, that's not, you know, because like it or not, when we have interactions, we, you know, however the psychology breaks down, we make judgments about people within like 5 seconds or something. Right. And it's based on how they look and how they present themselves. Look, it's completely unfair. Everybody should just care about what's inside here, but it's not going to happen because all we're presented with is human beings coming at each other. So if you're not going to take the time to go like, well, at least let me figure out what I want them to think about me when they first see me, and then from there I can either subvert it or I can reinforce it. But to just be kind of like, well, here I am, I'm a slob, but now you got to think I'm nice or cool. It's like, well, don't put that on me. You know, I don't want to do that much work because I see a million people all day. Like, take the time to present yourself and tell me who you are.
That's very interesting that you say this, and I think that it's what I love about style is it's utterly democratic. Like, I don't necessarily associate style with wealth at all, and in fact, a lot of the times the most stylish guys I know are not necessarily particularly well off. You know,
Yeah.
there are of course very well off people who are very stylish. Sorry, but and honey, but
Spectacular.
yeah, exactly. But it was funny. I remember I went to work on a ranch in Montana. And so in Montana, what everyone's wearing is extremely utilitarian, right? It's pragmatic to the extreme because you're working on a ranch. So if it gets snagged or if it gets ripped or whatever, and it was interesting also because the culture of the cowboys there was that they would spend a lot of money on their clothes because they would prefer to buy one rather than multiples, but have that one be very good. Like, for example, their cowboy hats, they would want a very high quality hat like a Resistol. You know, if they were wearing boots, they would buy White's boots, which are incredibly expensive. They're handmade in Washington. And it was interesting because there were some cowboys that had kind of okay style, but there were some guys that had amazing style, right? And this is, you know, kind of not my normal lexicon or vocabulary for style, but you look at them and the way they put themselves together, it was so cool. Like, you knew, like, that guy had a particular sense about what he wanted to look like, and he'd achieved it, right?
No, totally. They have a voice, and whatever that voice comes out to. I mean, look, that's why you and I, our hero is both Ralph Lauren.
Yes.
But what I love about Ralph is he's classic American, like 1940s, you know, Cary Grant style with the suiting. But then you see him out on the ranch, and you go like, that's the coolest guy in the world, like, you know, wearing this cowboy hat, and who's not, you know, not a cowboy clearly, but you go like, man, he owns it. You know, I always break it down to, you know, I just say any clothes you wear, you have to own.
Yes.
And
Yes.
you've heard me say this before, but you know, for the audience at home, you know, it's the difference between a friend of yours goes like, hey, I started playing the guitar. You want to hear something? And he like gets the guitar and he's all like hunched over it, and like the guitar completely owns him, and it just like someone come. But then you look at Jimi Hendrix, and he's slashing that guitar around, and you're like, he owns that guitar. And so it's clothes. You got to go like, I fucking own this, man. Like, this is who I am, and I'm all over this.
That's right. It's kind of like when Stevie Ray Vaughan used to like step out with the guitar. Even before you played a note, you were like, this guy.
My hero, my absolute hero. Just like, man, did he own? It's like an extension of their body, and our clothes and our suits should be an extension of our body. Right. And it's funny, and because I go, you know, we go to, both you and I go to events with guys really dressed nicely, and it's even at those guys who specialize in it. There's some guys still who are owned by the clothes.
Yes.
And they're so kind of like they're putting it together. You're like, come on, man, just like sprezzatura, just like tear it up,
and have fun, you know. Exactly. Yeah. Well, you know, it was funny. That I have a very funny Ralph Lauren story anecdote to share. So I was very fortunate enough to be invited to his house in the Hamptons, or in Montauk, because I was writing the second cover story related to his humanitarianism. And he is like, hey, let's go for a drive. So we went for a drive into the Hamptons, and we went to Double RL, right? And in Double RL, they just got a new shipment of vintage motorcycle jackets, and he collects old, you know, Bugo motorcycle jackets, as I do as well. And our philosophy is the same, in which if you find one and you like it, just buy it, right? Because you may not find it
again. Exactly.
So he buys this jacket and he puts it on, but he was dressed for the beach. So he's wearing a fisherman's sweater, white shorts, and tennis shoes, and then he's got a black leather motorcycle jacket on top of it, and he's walking around, and he just looks so cool, right? And people in the Hamptons, you know, he's like, I guess, like, you know, he's kind of a cultural icon, and everyone's like, Ralph, and then someone goes up to him and goes, is that the way people are dressing now, the motorcycles? I'm going to go home and try this. And so the guy runs off, and I go to I was like, Mr. Lauren, you know, you look so cool in this kind of like counterintuitive outfit. What's the secret? And he looks at me and he laughs and he goes, confidence. But
I 100% agree. I love that. He leaves trends in his wake.
Yeah. So let's talk about movies. Let's talk about film style, right? And I think it kind of connects with what you were saying earlier. My favorite films or moments of film style, and my favorite sort of like style icons from cinema, are guys that always wore their clothes effortlessly. right?
Yeah.
And so I would name three, and then one I will kind of disagree with, even though it's still one of my favorite films. So I would say Fred Astaire, you know,
Yep.
and everything that he wore, and especially if you look at him dancing in the white tie and the top hat, it's extraordinary. I mean, he's just so comfortable in his clothing, and he uses your tailor or used your tailor as well, and he used to dance in the dressing room to see if the collar would go, you know, move away from his neck. Humphrey Bogart. And Humphrey Bogart to me was probably one of the most stylish guys of all time. You know, I love Fred Astaire and Humphrey Bogart also because they're not conventionally attractive men, right? But they were so cool. And you know, people forget that that's much more interesting than just being beautiful. It's that persona, that confidence, that voice, and the way he wore, like, you know, there's this kind of common perception that shorter men shouldn't wear double-breasted jackets. But if you look at it, Bogart used to wear double-breasted all the time.
Oh, he made me want to buy double-breasted.
Killed it. The proportion, the fit, especially that white double-breasted jacket in Casablanca, you know? I think Cary Grant, of course, because he also wore his clothes in a way that you knew he was just being Cary Grant, and he could just throw on a suit, especially North by Northwest, because the suit is a joke, because it's always like immaculate, even though he's being chased by a crop duster. And then the one that's a little controversial is, I'm going to say, even though I love Steve McQueen's style and I love his suits, in Thomas Crown Affair, Steve McQueen never dressed like that, right? He never dressed in a three-piece suit by Dougie Hayward, you know, with fishtail cuffs and all that kind of thing. I mean, they're beautiful suits, but he's playing a character well, but it's not him, right? And I'll come to why I'm expressing that, but I want to know about you. What are your moments for film style?
Well, I mean, just to jump onto that, but it's like Sean Connery with Bond. I mean, Sean was taught by that director who did the first few first few films, and it is that. I mean, for me, God, my style icons, Marcello Mastroianni.
Yes.
You know, him at 8½, that was the moment, when I saw the back in film school, I go like, if I am lucky enough to direct professionally, I'm going to dress like him.
Yes.
And so, you know, I love that. One of my style icons, which is a very weird thing people don't think about, is William Powell.
Oh, cool.
Oh my, because I think if you watch those, Laurie and I have been binging on all the old screwball comedies and the Myrna Loy and not even the Thin Man. Like before the Thin Man, they did all these screwball comedies together. What I love about him, it's the same reason I love Monty Python and the Holy Grail, Monty Python in general, the show. They're doing comedy in suits and ties. You know what I mean? And that to me is the funniest thing in the world. You know, that's why it's guys, you know, wearing the uniform, but being crazy. And I kind of dedicated my life to being like, look, I'm gonna dress like a really uptight guy, but I'm funny when I do it. So I want to kind of dispel this whole thing that suits are, you know, stuffy and the establishment and, you know, and so that's why I love all that stuff. But I mean, you know, obviously Cary Grant for me too is the one, and Fred Astaire. I mean, Steve McQueen, the ideal of Steve McQueen is great. That's why I love Tom Sweeney. You know, I think they've really embraced that whole look. And I've got a bunch of suits from them that I've had bespoke from them. But then there's guys like modern guys like Tom Hardy, who always dresses really beautifully, I think, and Ryan Gosling, who looks great, John Hamm, my friend John Hamm, who, you know, gets a lot of Tom Ford, but he really makes it look great. The moment I lost my mind in a movie in the last 20 years was at the end of Casino Royale, with Daniel Craig at the very end when he shoots that guy like on Lake Como, and he's just standing over him wearing that Tom Ford three-piece, which I have now. It's the one that all the guys that work in the stores wear. But like the first time I saw that with the wide lapel and that beautiful vest, he's holding the gun. I was like, oh my God, I like lost my mind. So,
I think I totally agree with you, and I think what I love about how you wear clothes, as you were saying, you know, when you go to an event and there's for example, it's evening wear. There's guys that are beautifully dressed, as you say, but it's kind of, they're always fidgeting with their clothes a little bit. You can tell they're not totally comfortable. You know, Paul, what I like about the way you dress is it's an effortless extension of who you are, and you're comfortable in them, you know, in the same way like Alexander Kraft, who's a buddy of ours, it's almost like he sleeps on a double-breasted waistcoat, you know?
Yeah. I love, what a stylish guy. I don't know how I mean, well, what I love about your style, Wei, is you go everywhere. I mean, literally, like, I've seen you in so many different looks, and everyone, like Ralph Lauren, you're just like, I'm like, oh my God, like, you're so effortless and beautiful in it. For me, when I dress in kind of like jeans and stuff, it doesn't, I feel more uncomfortable in that, unless I'm around the house, and clearly I'll throw on a flannel shirt and whatever. But if I'm out in public, like, I'm more futzing, like, I feel like I'm wearing dad jeans, you know, and I just look, my biggest fear is not aging correctly. I have no desire to, like, stay young, you know, and I think this is what takes down a lot of guys as they get older, and especially in my generation. I'm older than you. Is guys chasing this eternal youth, and I've seen it over and over. And like guys my age dressing like 15-year-olds, and it's like, what are you trying to tell me? Like, am I supposed to think you're a teenager because you're wearing like shorts and a t-shirt and a baseball cap, or am I supposed to, like, what? I don't understand what I'm supposed to get from you. And it's just, my number one rule with getting dressed when you're buying clothes, especially when you're buying like modern clothes or in style fashion, is don't look at your body, look at your head. Look at your head on top of those clothes, because I've seen it a million times, especially in, I live in, Hollywood. We're both have worked there. You go into like a fancy restaurant, go to Maestro's or something, and there's some guy with a hot new girlfriend, who's in his 50s. Clearly they went shopping. He found whatever the cool new style is, and he's wearing it. You go, yeah, from the neck down, that actually looks kind of cool. But dude, look at that on top of that, and it does not work. But so that's the disconnect. You have to be careful. You don't want to be the old guy dressing young.
In his mind, he looks like Drake or Pharrell, but in reality, he looks like Flavio Briatore.
No, we're all exactly, and we're all kind of like good-naturedly or not laughing at him, and you're like, oh God, okay. But he's going, oh sure, I got my hot 20-year-old girlfriend, but it's like, you know what, dude, fine, you go do that.
Yeah. So it's funny because you say that, because that was one of the impetuses under which TheRake was created. I remember, about 15 years ago when I first started thinking about it, there was this whole culture of sort of worshiping youth, right? Yeah. And I had slid directly into my 40s, and at that point it was clear that I wasn't getting any younger, And I thought it was really sad. I think the moment where it became crystal clear to me was when Eddie Slimane was the design director for Dior Homme, and he made these suits that were so tight that people had to lose like so much weight in order to fit into them, and most men couldn't. In fact, the only people that looked good in them were women. I think Nicole Kidman was wearing them, a couple of other women, Madonna, but and I remember Karl Lagerfeld, and oh, may he rest in peace. I remember he famously lost something like 30 or 40 pounds just to wear Dior Homme. And I looked at this, went to go try it on, of course, because I wanted to see what it was about. And I'm like, yeah, I look like a sausage that was about to burst. This is never going to work. So then I started thinking about it, and I was like, it's a shame. And again, I go back to Hollywood, classic Hollywood, because in every generation previous to ours, you think of a man getting to his best, becoming the fullest sort of, achieving his fullest grandeur when he is in his 40s or his 50s or his 60s. Simple kind of test is when you close your eyes and you think of Cary Grant, you don't think of a 20-year-old man. You think of him in his 50s, maybe even his late 50s, with the silver hair and the Riviera, and To Catch a Thief. And I think that I wanted to make men feel more relevant as they got older, and part of that was exactly what you were saying, was to embracing classic style, right?
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
And having that education and starting, to understand, what the rules are, because there's always parameters, right? That, for example, a single-breasted tuxedo is more formal than a double-breasted tuxedo because it is derived from white tie. And then if you wear it with a waistcoat or a cummerbund, I prefer not to, but a gilet is usually the way to go. And a double-breasted one was sort of popularized by the Duke of Windsor, and that's why you wear it with a soft collar as opposed to a wingtip collar. And then after that, once you have these rules in your mind, you can start to riff on them. You can become Gianni Agnelli. You can wear a denim shirt, but at least you're being like Picasso, who was a classically trained painter first before he decided to move into abstraction,
Yeah, totally. No, I 100% agree with that. I mean, for me, it's just like, when did men stop wanting to be adults? I had when I was a kid, I think maybe 5 or 6 years old, and my parents we went to Las Vegas. They went to see one of like the big Ali fights. You know, they have these tickets. So we went to the Dunes Hotel. And I remember like, that was in the old days when like a kid couldn't even look at the casino. You know, so we came in and they weren't that big. So you had to like stay up on this outer rim. And so we were walking around, and literally like people in suits and ties and tuxedos down on the casino floor. I was just like a kid in the candy store, like looking at that. And I remember they would go on the way to the fight, and I thought, you know, I thought I was an adult back then. And they're like, okay, you're going to go to the nursery. And so they had this nursery that was basically, they had a big sliding glass door on the edge of the casino. And they put me in there, and they left. And I remember just being in this room with all these other kids, and I'm like looking out this glass window at this floor with all these adults drinking and gambling and dressed beautifully. And I remember as a child, like it gone with the wind, like, as God is my witness, when I'm an adult, I'm going to live the life of an adult. I do not want to be here. I hate this. I hate not being able to be one of them. And it's just stayed with me my entire life. And so the minute I turned 18, 21, when I could do adult things, that's all I've cared about. And I had a friend, because I used to, you know, when I was in my 20s, I really liked kind of dressing and like almost like I love the movie Strangers in Paradise. Remember that one with John Lurie? You know, they were all dressing like kind of like, you know, gamblers from the 50s or whatever. So I started wearing like the pork pie hats and all that. And I just, you know, and I remember a friend of mine went like, he said, you can't wait to be old, can you? And it was like, you know what? You're kind of right. I want to be like in my 50s. You know, the only thing now when you're in your 50s, you're like, okay, can it stop so I don't go to my 60s and 70s and 80s? But at the same time, I'm so happy to be an adult. And that's why I love cocktails and going out and you know, having adult fun, and then watching those old movies from the 30s, which, can we please bring back supper clubs? Can we please bring back supper clubs where men go in tuxedos and white tie and women are in gowns, and there's a floor show and they bring champagne? And I mean,
there's a rumor that Ralph Lauren may open one. Like the old type of, like, you know, like jazz club, store club kind of thing. You know?
Please, Ralph, please. Andrew, make Ralph do it.
So you have now been in isolation or quarantine for how many weeks now?
Been 3 and change, yeah.
And you're there with your wonderful wife, who's also a dear friend of mine, Lori. What would be your advice to people who are in quarantine or in isolation with another person? Because, you know, this can either bring out the best in you or it can bring out the worst in you, I would imagine, you know?
Yeah, I mean, look, we're lucky we have a house, so there's separate rooms. I mean, if you're in New York and kind of like a studio apartment or something, like, you know, that's hard, because it's hard not to have space. We're able to like find our different spaces, and I'm able to go in, prep for my show and do my writing and all that. But, you know, geography and confinement aside, it's really just, you gotta be forgiving. I mean, honestly, it's the key to marriage anyway, I think. It's just like, love the faults, love the flaws, embrace the differences, you know, and don't be so hard on each other, and just try to like find your alone time, even if it's just like, we're both going to read a book on separate sides of the room. We're both going to just kind of do something. Like, you just have to kind of have your time, but then also it's all about empathy. It's going like, well, they're going through the same thing I'm going through.
Yeah.
And, you know, just kind of here's the thing I hope, and this is a bit of a diversion, but maybe not. What I hope comes out of this terrible situation that we're all in is, you know, the last number of years, outrage has become the most overused, meaningless emotion. Because, look, outrage over injustice and inequality and you know, that kind of thing, that's so important. That's what outrage is for. But outrage over like pop culture and, you know, stupid stuff is such a waste of time. And that's where it's funny. This whole thing, I was literally, I mean, for the last few years, I've been ready to just like, please shut down the internet, you know, because it's just adding to all kinds of small-mindedness, you know, and micro kind of vision. And, but now with what we're going through, I'm in love with the internet again, because of look what we're doing right now.
Right.
And look at what I'm able to do with my cocktail show. Look at all these people are able to do with their IG live feeds and with their social media and with Zoom and having Zoom dinner parties and getting in touch with each other. It's so important. And it's really just keeping communication going and just really trying to make sure that we are all in this together. We have to give each other a break.
Yes.
And I hope just more tolerance comes out of this. That's why I so loved, again, that what you put up on TheRake. And please, everybody, go to the TheRake feed and see Wei's most recent thing about compassion and fear, because it's just so important. You really crystallized it all.
Well, thank you, Paul. And it's sad because, well, no, it's not sad. I mean, it's very common. It's normal that anytime there's a crisis, and certainly a virus that is spreading at a pandemic rate is terrifying. But then the transmission of a virus is a virus called fear, of course, and that doesn't need droplets, or it doesn't need human contact. It just needs one image or one word or two words put together, like Chinese virus. And I wrote that thing saying that, we're now in a war against the COVID-19, but we're also in a war between compassion and hate, right? And it's interesting. I think in general, 90% of the people who read it were very supportive, but there were still people who were like, you must be working for the Chinese government. Are you a communist? And it was like, I don't think you understood what I was saying, right?
No.
And it has to do with empathy. And so what my hope is, and just to understand it, I just want to explain it in the following way. No one, including myself, and it's not like I have any particularly friendly relationship with mainland China, is arguing with the fact that this virus originated in China. What doesn't help, however, is that when people call it the Chinese virus, they implant in their minds of people this desire to blame someone. And so what you have happen is Americans or Europeans or Australians then turn on their fellow Americans, Europeans, or Australians and say, you're to blame because you are from Chinese ethnicity, maybe 2 generations ago or 3 generations ago. And I think that's so completely illogical. And that's what I was trying to express, because it doesn't help. Like, if you've got this crisis going on and you are turning on your own countrymen, and incidentally, which are disproportionately represented in the medical profession,
Yeah, no, exactly.
And that's not going to help.
And they've even, found out that most of it came from Europe. So I always say on the show, like, this is nobody's fault. This is nobody's fault. It's happened. This is Mother Earth shrugging. It was going to happen no matter what. Right. So just we get through it, and then we'll come out the other side stronger. But it's a horrible thing. And please, I mean, the minute we're not kind to each other, then the virus wins. You know what I mean?
Yes. And it's also, and I think that, I had a conversation with a very interesting man named Jean-Claude Biver, who's something of a legend in the watch industry. And I said, what's the world going to be like after this? And he said, listen, every business in the world, or the majority of the businesses in the world today, even though we're in the 3rd millennium, are basically being run by old men from the 20th century, right? Yeah. And the 20th century old men were following one simple rule: profit no matter what the cost. No matter what the cost to the world, no matter what the cost to the human beings in the world. And what his hope is, and my hope is, and I think your hope is as well, is that when we come out of this, we're going to recognize that this is no longer feasible, acceptable, right? And the hopefully generation, the millennials, who we used to disparage because they all seem so flaky, hopefully when they rise to power and predominance, which they have to because that's the generation that's after us, they are going to make, as I already begin to see, ethics be as important as success. And in fact, ethics will equate success a lot of times as well. And I think that's important.
Oh no, 100%. The minute at the beginning of this, when these guys were going like, basically their message was sacrifice old people for old infirm people for the economy. It's like, no, that's a monster's theory on how to get through this. Like, people are number one. Look, the economy will figure it out. It'll be done. But it's all about people. Without people, there's no economy. There's nothing. We are who we are.
Absolutely. Paul, last question, and it's an important one. I think what I hope also is that we're going to move out of this period of prevalent cynicism. And you see this so much in movies, right? You see that a movie that has a cynical or dark or kind of, depressing ending is considered to be a serious film. and a film that has a happy ending is considered to be frivolous, right? And I think what was very interesting, that one of the most popular shows on Netflix right now is a show called Money Heist. And sorry, spoiler alert. What I love about Money Heist, at least season 1 and season 2, which comprises the first kind of like series, is that there's a happy ending, right? And I think it's so important right now, and I hope that we come out of this having faith in happy endings again. Because if we don't believe there's light at the end of the tunnel, if we don't start to tell those type of stories and inundate our collective consciousness with hope, and which you've always done, Paul, then we're only going to add to the fear, the hysteria, and the depression. So tell me, Paul, what's the place of the happy ending in the post-coronavirus world?
I agree, but I agree. I think it is. It's like the movie Independence Day, right? Where that was the one time the entire world bonded together because there was a common enemy. The great thing, the common enemy, it's not even like a being. It's just like a thing that looks like a landmine. So I'm hoping that we all go like, I don't want to be pie in the sky, but like put our differences aside. We're all together in this, because, look, we've been inundated with dystopian, worlds and movies and like the end of the world and all this. It's like, all right, now we've been through it. Like, maybe we don't need that. That's why I've been having so much fun watching these old screwball comedies from the 30s and 40s. It's just like, it's about love and falling in love and chasing somebody, and it's all lovely and upbeat, and that's all we need right now.
Yeah, so there's nothing wrong with happiness and hope, correct?
No, my God, please. Oh, please, just happiness, everybody. That's all we need. Everybody wants to be happy. We don't need strife. It's fun to watch strife, but you know what? Our lives, we don't need strife. So let's keep it going up.
Paul, thank you so much, my friend. It's been an absolute pleasure seeing you.
Thank you, Wei. I love you so much. I missed you. I can't wait till we can sit down face to face and have a drink at Duke's with Alessandro.
Absolutely. What a wonderful goal to have. Let's do that. Thank you, Paul. Take care, my
Thanks, Wei. I'll talk to you soon.